Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisco Gaming, and in today's video, we're going to talk all about fire crystals, a new player guide. If you're getting fire crystals for the first time, you've come to the right place, because I, too, just unlocked fire crystals in the last couple weeks, and I wanted to make a video sharing all the things I wish I had known once fire crystals landed in game. You can see that my city has now got the first fire crystal level unlocked. I'm on my way to the second, but there's so much that I've learned, and this video, I'm going to share all of it. You can use the timestamps to jump to whichever part of the video you'd like. But big picture, the thing you need to know about fire crystals, it's just a way of advancing your city even further, and the fire crystal ends up being sort of a limiter to your progress. In other words, you're going to be getting fire crystals from a bunch of different events and also bundles and doing exploration. And you need to have these things to do upgrades to your building. Now, some of these upgrades are going to feel pretty cheap in terms of the quantity of fire crystals initially, like this infirmary. It's only going to take 31 fire crystals to do this particular upgrade, but these upgrades are not exactly meet the eye. In order to go from no fire crystal levels to 1 fire crystal level, or 2 to 3, or 1 to 2, or wherever you're going, you need to do 5 upgrades. So it's very much incremental and staged in terms of how you get this progress. So this is just going to take me from basically like fire crystal 1.0 to 1.1. Is that how people notate it? I don't actually know. But you kind of get the idea here. You need to do multiple of these upgrades. In fact, being able to upgrade one building requires you to have prerequisites, just like you had prerequisites for upgrading your furnace before getting to level 30. So once you get to furnace level 30, you can start doing fire crystals. The first thing you'll have to do is upgrade your furnace to fire crystal level 1. And from there, you can start to do other buildings, such as your infirmary, which is going to increase your hospital capacity, your embassy. Okay, and if we look at this, this is going to increase your reinforcement capacity. You can do your command center after you've done your embassy, which is a pretty big deal here. So you can see the embassy is required first. Now, in order to do this embassy, I have to get all the way to, to do the command center. I have to get all the way to embassy fire crystal level 2 and furnace fire crystal level 2. So right now, like, I can't do this building at all. So if I got to like 1.1 on the embassy, I still can't start the command center. I have to get the completion to level 2. But once you do command center, you get more troop deployment and rally capacity, which is freaking huge, okay? But perhaps the most important of all of these upgrades is going to be your troop buildings, okay? And the reason that this is such a big deal is that if I go in to train troops, you can see I've got a little icon in the upper left now indicating, hey, you've got fire crystal troops, which means I'm getting more base stats. Now, if I'm not mistaken, when you see that you have like an infantry attack percentage boost, it's a percent boost of these base stats, which means getting base stats is an extremely big deal. You can see attack, defense, health, lethality, and additional fire crystal troop skills. So not only are you getting 1 attack for every level of these Apex infantry, okay, going from fire crystal level 1, 2 to 3, you're also gaining 1 defense, 2 defense, then 1 defense again. You're also gaining health, 1, then 1, then 1 again. But you're also gaining lethality from level 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. Interestingly, not from furnace level 30 to fire crystal level 1, no increase in lethality. But at level 3, there's a new skill, which I imagine is just a huge boost in the effectiveness of your troops, okay? The fire crystal energy attached to the surface makes the shield impregnable and grants it a 25% chance of offsetting 36 damage. I don't know exactly how good that is, but it seems extremely strong to me. So, yeah, your infantry get more tanky, and you can see that new skill represented over here. In fact, if we look at what the other troops do and sort of what kind of boosts they're getting, we can look at the Lancers here. The Lancers are also gaining boosts to their base stats, but also the Crystal Lance. Fire crystal energy attached to the blade makes the lance indestructible and granting a 10% chance of dealing double damage. Double damage from Lancers seems decent, but let's look at the Marksmen. The Marksmen are probably more important, I would say. I guess it depends on what generation you're in. So let's get a look here. The powerful energy provided by the fire crystal enables the bullet to pierce through everything and grants a 20% chance of dealing 50% more damage. Okay. So double the chance to get a damage bonus, but half as much damage. It's basically the same bonus that Lancers get, honestly. It's just written up in a different way and works slightly differently. But the effectiveness of it, I would say, is similar. I guess Lancers are technically more bursty, potentially, right? If you get really lucky on a bunch of dice rolls, Lancers could just pop off. I don't see an internal cooldown listed for this either. So anyways, all that to say, I think that if you're a rally or garrison captain, then the command center ends up being one of the most important things. But everybody getting higher fire crystal level means your troops are just stronger, okay? And regardless of what tier of troop you have, even, they are stronger. So you can see here, if I bring a lower tier of troop, the base stats are still going up, even though it's a lower tier of troop. You see what I mean? They just have less base stats, but they are elevated by the fire crystal bonuses nonetheless. Now, one big pro tip, and consider subscribing if you find this tip valuable or you're getting value from this video, is that these buildings, you cannot train troops and be upgrading the building at the same time, which means I only upgrade these buildings when I'm going to speed them up. So my strong recommendation is that you do that. You pop a bunch of buffs, speed these up during an event. That way, you're not sitting there upgrading the building and not training troops. Think about it this way, double duty on your speed ups. I know I said this in another video, but it's such an important point. I'm going to hit it home. Okay. If I am upgrading this building, and let's say this was upgrading it and it would take 6 hours, not only would I finish the upgrade 6 hours sooner, but also during that entire time, now I could be training troops. It's double duty on speed ups. So your building speed ups are best used for these 3 buildings: infantry camp, lancer camp, marksman camp. That's where your building speed ups are best used. They are 2-for-1 value because you cannot train troops while the building is upgrading. Okay, big deal. Okay, very big deal. Now, in terms of priorities, you got to start with your furnace. Once your furnace is done, the cool thing is that then you can have 2 queues going at a time. I have 2 building queues. One is idle right now, which kind of sucks. So if you actually have the fire crystals and you want to sort of maximize your passive building benefits, which it's like free speed ups equivalent, right? The way you could go about doing that is once you get to the next fire crystal level, at that point, both the infirmary and the embassy do not have a prerequisite other than the furnace. So once the furnace gets up, as I show on screen here, you can start those 2 at the same time if you wanted. And then at least you have 2 building queues going at the same time. All right. But you know, it gets a little bit weird. You're going to have to speed some stuff up, particularly speed these guys up over here. Before you go and speed those up, in my perfect world, there's some research that you would go and get. Obviously, in the growth section over here, you'd want to have your tooling up maxed if you could for construction speed. Seems straightforward. Before you max your tooling up construction speed, ideally you max your research speed to make it so that when you go and research the building speed, you have a decreased cost. So research speed first, then building speed, in my opinion. That's how I would run that. And the other thing you should do if you're going to go and do a building upgrade is, of course, you want to go and pop double time. And also by this point, you'll have a pet right over here. You get the Builder's Aid skill from the very first pet. In terms of priorities, I originally thought probably not the Cave Hyena as the #1 priority, but I think given how quickly fire crystals arrive, yes. Cave Hyena, #1 priority, get the building speed boost, seems pretty good. In terms of that effect here, level 5 is the max. All right, 15% building speed. I mean, it's not a ton, but it's pretty decent. Technically at this point, because the Sunfire Castle is captured, you could try to align big upgrades, like if you're going to speed up these 4 buildings over here, you could try to align that with a kingdom-wide buff and also a Sunfire Castle title boost. I believe it's the vice president, gets like 10% building, research, and training speed. So you can stack a lot of those buffs to really take advantage, and I think you really ought to in a perfect world, right? And the time to do that is, I believe, SVS prep, although once we get there, I'll be able to make a video about that and tell you a good bit more in detail exactly how that works, okay? So if you wanted more information about fire crystals, there's a fire crystals details section in the upper right, and you can watch the little cinematic. They explain everything over here. They explain fire crystal troops and how that works. And, you know, we can take a quick look at this. Upgrade the camps to fire crystal buildings to unlock the corresponding fire crystal troops. The level of the fire crystal troop will be the same as its camp. As the fire crystal level of a troop increases, its basic attributes improve. Okay, they do call them basic stats. I did get that right. Troops will that reach a certain fire crystal level will be able to unlock new skills. We talked about that, which will be enhanced subsequently upon reaching a certain fire crystal level. And the time and resources required for training troops will remain unchanged. Yep. And the full details are over here. All right. So if you want to see, hey, when I get to fire crystal level 2, what's it going to look like? There it is. That's the complete buff set. Okay. Now, when fire crystals first show up, the max fire crystal level that you can do is fire crystal level 3. So these are released incrementally in nature. And thankfully, I've got an infographic we can go get a look at that will be really, really helpful. In fact, I have 2 resources from my Discord server linked down below in the description. Let's pull those up now. All right, so the first thing I wanted to show you is when fire crystals are going to arrive. You can see the server timeline, and this infographic is really helpful. The exact dates are going to vary depending on when your state was born in your neighborhood, I believe, because some of these days were not exact for us. But around server age 40, which, by the way, check your VIP consecutive days logged. I assume you log in every day. And if you do, that's going to tell you how old your server is. Easy way to see that, because, like, you know, you should have started on day 1 of your server, and there you go. Anyways, so you get Gen 2 on day 40, the first grouping of pets on day 53-ish, and fire crystals around day 60, all right? And you can see here that you go to fire crystal, or I guess furnace level 3 for fire crystals, okay? Then you get your SVS and KOI. We just had our first KOI conclude. Then you get 2 new pets. And honestly, I think we got the 2 new pets first, the Titan Rock and the Tapir. And then you'll get Gen 3. Then you get another grouping of pets. And then 150 days in, you get level 4 and 5 and the Crystal Laboratory. All right. So that, and then let's see here. You go really far up. It looks like day 220, War Academy, Fire Crystal Tech, T11 show up. And then Fire Crystal Shards as well. Looks like Fire Crystal levels 6 through 8 become available on day 315 with Refined Fire Crystal. And then Fire Crystal levels 9 and 10 on day 500. So all that to say, we got a long time till that happens, all right? We got some time. This is a new player Fire Crystal guide. Speaking of which, you probably want to know what the costs are. So this sheet is in my Discord server as well, linked down below in the description. So like any resource you want, go to the important links section. It's in my Whiteout Survival Discord server. But you can see you need almost 2,000 fire crystals. And I know the resolution on this is not amazing, but it still has the numbers, which is great. But about 2,000 fire crystals to get to FC level 1 and max all the buildings. The furnace is very expensive, and you're going to want to rush the furnace. I believe you start getting fire crystals from your exploration only when you get to furnace fire crystal level 1. Let me know down below in the comments if that is in fact the case. I think that it is the case, though. So you're going to want to get there quickly so that you start to get those. All right. Then the level 2 requires 2,360 fire crystals. Level 3 requires 3,560 fire crystals. From what I'm told, you're pretty much like always going to need more fire crystals. So you're going to want to get a lot of these. There's going to be some bundles that show up where you can get them. But you can see just from looking at this that the furnace is the most expensive building. The embassy and the command center and the infirmary are relatively cheap. And your troop training camps are the next most expensive by just about double, maybe more than double, your embassy, command center, and infirmary, all right? So those are the things you need to be thinking about as you progress here. And then the further fire crystal levels, like I said, you know, you're going to need a lot of them. To get to fire crystal level 5 from 0 is 17,100 fire crystals. Now, I can't speak to the accuracy of this diagram. I haven't checked every single number, and I can't check the things I can't reach. But this does look accurate at first blush. But, you know, if not, I'll update the pinned comment and let you know what the latest is. Or you could just look it up in my Discord server, where people have done an amazing job of just posting incredible resources for the community to enjoy. So there you go. Fire crystal levels and Whiteout Survival. Do I have any tips or tricks for you? I mean, there was an event that showed up around the start that had Actually, was it an event? I think it was a bundle that showed up around the start. Maybe it was mixed with an event. I can't remember. But it had a lot of fire crystals in it. And it seems like there are a lot of ways to buy fire crystals. I would say my one mistake in getting fire crystals was that at one point I prioritized them over mithril when I should have prioritized the mithril. So from events and other things, you'll have a lot of ways to get this, I think. And I still want to emphasize that for my account anyways, the mithril was the priority. I suppose for other accounts, you might think that the fire crystals are better. You'll start to make your choices here, but the sooner you can get to fire crystal level 3, the faster you start to be ready for what comes next, which is going to be 4 and 5. And I believe the laboratory is what we saw, right? You enjoy the vid, throw a like on here, subscribe. You want to see some other recent videos about Whiteout Survival, check the cards in the end screen. I'm making my way to the end game. I mean, we're probably mid-game at this point, right? Once you get fire crystals, does that qualify as mid-game? We're out of the early game now. I think that's probably true. Maybe after we have our first SVS and transfers open up, that's when we enter the mid-game. And definitely check the link in the description for that Discord server. We are, I think, going to open up a separate transfer Discord server for our state. Details on that to follow, but that'll all be announced in the Discord server link below. All right, until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies. Take care, everyone.